Christian parenting.
It's not likely or even a fair expectation for us or for our kids to just resume a prior activity following extreme escalation, acting as though nothing had happened. There's some repair work that needs to be done, both relationally and physiologically in the body. Hey, families, and welcome back to another episode of the Called to Love podcast. I am so grateful that you have chosen to spend your summer with me, specifically in this latest series that I have called How to Promote Emotional and Behavioral Regulation in Your Family. How's it going? How have you been able to employ some of the strategies that we've talked about over the last few weeks? I would love to hear from you. And I want to make sure, as we are about to dive into new content for the fall, that you are subscribed to this podcast and that you are in the know of when the latest episodes come out. You don't want to miss a moment. I have some fantastic guests and some amazing topics that the Lord has brought. So make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast. Today, as we close out this series, I don't want to miss talking about the practical ways to help you and your child recover after moments of escalation. And the reason why is because it's not likely or even a fair expectation for us or for our kids to just resume a prior activity following extreme escalation, acting as though nothing had happened. There's some repair work that needs to be done, both relationally and physiologically in the body. And speaking of the body specifically, there is an adrenaline dump that actually happens in a couple of different ways after an escalation. And so our kids need nurturing after they have de-escalated from that moment of upset. They need nurture that is going to vary based on the degree of escalation that they have experienced. And so for the next few minutes, we're going to wrap up this series by talking about 5 ways to help your child recover after dysregulation. These are some very practical, easy to remember ways that you can engage with your kiddos when they've had those moments of dysregulation. So here we go with the 5 ways. The first step is to sit with your kids. Your presence as their safe and trusted caregiver is invaluable, especially after moments of escalation and dysregulation. Your kids need to know that you're there. They need to know that you have a plan to comfort them, and your presence sometimes is just enough. No words, no touch, especially sometimes for our more volatile kids who struggle a little bit more with anger and rage. Maybe they've had a lack of trust in their previous caregivers, and so they may not want you to talk at them, and they may not want you to touch them. This may actually re-escalate them if you say anything or if you try to offer some type of touch that's even gentle. So we want to be mindful of that and knowing our kids. I want to give you an example. A few years ago, our church hosted a conference for foster and adopted parents, and it was all about TBRI and parenting methods. And it was an all-day conference. We were about 3/4 of the way through the day. The kids are getting exhausted. They're getting restless. And there were some caregivers that had volunteered who were honestly not trauma-informed and not trauma-experienced. And so we had a young man who was being fostered by one of our families, and he became terribly upset. He became terribly agitated, and he was becoming very disruptive. He was spouting foul language. He was upsetting some of the younger children. And so I was called in to try to help with the situation. He was curled up in a ball. I found him over kind of in a corner of a room. It's like he knew I was coming, even though he'd never even seen me before up until this point, other than just a greeting that morning when the family came in. And I found him sitting in that ball across from a playroom, and he was just kind of rocking back and forth. But I could see that he was ready for a fight with anyone who came near him. So he was not physically escalated anymore, but emotionally and mentally, I could see that he had still blown his lid and he was ready for a fight. So all I did was sit down next to him and just let him know, hey, buddy, I'm just going to sit here with you, and I'm here to help. Listen, I was not met with a positive response. He did not embrace me as a safe caregiver. He had ugly words for me over the course of several minutes. This probably went on for about 30 minutes. He yelled at the top of his lungs for me to go away. I don't want you here. This went on for a good while, but finally, I started to watch his body language change because he realized that he couldn't push me away with his harsh words. So the worst of it was over, and he began to soften little by little, and I began to be able to add little just moments of speaking simple things to him. And before the afternoon was over, he and I were best buddies, and I had recruited him as my helper, and we picked up some of the messes that he had made. We went on special missions to get afternoon snacks for the rest of the kids. And he was able to calm down and de escalate simply because my safe and constant presence was with him. It took quite a bit. And so maybe you can relate to some of these experiences with your foster kiddos, especially. They are testing you to see if you're going to stay. And they are very, very volatile when it comes to any kind of input from you, especially when they don't trust you yet. So sometimes just your quiet presence is the best way to help a child recover when they have had moments of escalation. Number 2 is gentle touch. Again, you've got to discern as the caregiver whether or not this is appropriate and whether or not the child will receive it. But for our kids who do receive it well, who do benefit from it, gentle touch is a fantastic tool for you to be able to utilize when your child has come down from severe escalation. This might look like tickling their back. It might look like playing with their hair. Both of these things regulate the central nervous system. My husband uses an exercise, honestly, on me and then some of his patients as an occupational therapist. He takes his pointer finger and his thumb, and he has just a little bit of space in between the two, and he starts at the top of the base of my neck, and he rubs slowly down my spine, very, very slow, and just does it a handful of times, anywhere between 5 to 10 times. It helps me automatically to begin to calm down, and it is really, really helpful for our kiddos as well, calming that central nervous system. So gentle touch is another great tool for you to utilize. Number 3, pressure. It sounds strange, but some of our kiddos have so much pent up energy, it actually helps to offset that energy by creating pressure around their bodies. Again, this is something you're going to want to discern whether or not your kiddo receives this well. You don't want to force pressure on a kiddo who does not regulate that way. That is going to cause severe escalation, and it's going to break trust in the kiddo because they're going to perceive that as an attack. So you want to be discerning on the kiddos that require pressure or benefit from pressure. This could be a big bear hug. It might be a weighted blanket. If they don't want touch from you as their caregiver, they can go get that weighted blanket and they can crawl underneath it, and it adds that extra pressure to their bodies and a positive sensory experience. It also helps to warm their bodies because sometimes coming down from that extreme escalation, the body can kind of go into a little bit of a shock. They might get a little bit of a chill. And so that pressure and that warmth from the weighted blanket is really beneficial for them. Something that we did for our kids when they were younger is what we called the burrito wrap, where they would get their favorite blanket and we would wrap them tight in that blanket, and then we would hold them and hug them, and we would make funny little songs about wrapping them up in a burrito. And that was really comforting for them. And all of these things related to pressure soothe the central nervous system and help the body to recover from that massive dump of adrenaline. As Christian parents, we all want to be praying for our kids, but knowing what to pray can be really hard sometimes. That's why Christian Parenting created its newest resource, a great Cloud of Witnesses prayer journal. This is to help busy parents like you and me to intentionally pray over our children and their faith all year long. This weekly journal walks through the lives of faithful men and women in Scripture like Abraham, Sarah, Moses, and Rahab, who all trusted an extraordinary God. It helps you to pray boldly for your kids to follow in their footsteps, grow in godly character, deepen their faith, and trust in God's plan for their lives. And bonus, every Monday on the Pardon the Mess podcast, host Courtney DeFeo will be praying through the journal with you. You can visit cpgive.org and use code CLOUD to get your special podcast listener discount. That's cpgive.org, code CLOUD. Now let's get back to the conversation. Number 4, go outside. If you are able to, if the weather allows, regardless of the temperature, it is so beneficial for you to go out, get in literally new air, and absorb that warm sunlight, take deep breaths of fresh air, maybe walk barefoot if you've got, you're around your backyard or your front yard or a park. Let your kids take off their shoes and walk barefoot. There's actually scientific evidence that shows that grounding by having your bare feet on the ground, that being soil and grass and sand and that kind of a thing is actually beneficial for our bodies. So allow them that opportunity and that sensory experience to help their bodies to calm down. That deep breathing of the fresh air, absorbing that vitamin D of the sunlight is really going to help them to reset and to recover. Number 5 is fun and play. This is one of my favorites, and it really does take, again, discernment in when it's appropriate to introduce fun and play, because if your child is still agitated and you're trying to play with them, sometimes they'll take that as picking and trying to trigger them again. So you've got to make sure that you introduce the fun and the play when you know that they are ready to receive it. This might look like singing some songs, whether they're silly, funny songs, whether they are comforting songs. It might be worship songs. It might be something from their favorite TV show, just anything to give them a positive experience and recall something that's positive to them, to make them smile and to make things just more lighthearted. Other things like tactile play, so I'm thinking specifically Play-Doh, slime, or sand, that tactile experience for our kiddos is very, very soothing and calming. A lot of our church ministries or for our schools will actually have tactile calming stations where in certain parts of the room, they know that they can go at any point to utilize some of these tactile tools, slime, Play-Doh, sand, anything that they can do to play with their hands and experience that. It really is calming for the central nervous system, and it's a positive experience for our kids. And then laugh together. This is a huge one. There is nothing that brings people together more than laughter. And so we have the opportunity to do that with our kids. Laugh at yourself if you've done something silly. Laugh with them over a funny joke. My kids absolutely love Mad Libs. That's one of their favorite things to pull out. And we add silly words and we read it out and we laugh together. Maybe your kiddos like animals, so you pull up some funny animal videos on your phone and you laugh together about that. Tell them funny stories about maybe something you did as a child or something that their grandparents did or anything along those lines that can bring that laughter and that play element. Now, keep in mind, all of these things that I have shared with you, your presence is essential. You are in it and you are doing these things with them. It's been the theme of everything that I have shared with you as we are talking about tools to help calm our kids and regulate our kids. Our presence is essential. I was thinking through one of my favorite Christmas movies is A Christmas Story. And I was thinking about this element of play and motivating our kids to calm down, to focus, and even to comply. And do you remember the scene where they're just about to get the delivery of the huge leg lamp? But before that, they were sitting at the dinner table, and the younger brother refuses to eat, and the mother's just at her wits' end. And instead of getting frustrated, she says, "Randy, show mommy how the little piggies eat." And he smiles and lights up, and his face just dives right into that plate of food. It's everywhere, but the mom starts laughing with him, and the little boy starts laughing, and he's eating his food, but they're laughing together rather than being frustrated with one another. So, a moment of tension around the dinner table because the little boy wouldn't eat ended in a belly full of food and a face covered with food, but there was some sweet laughter associated with that. And so that just came to mind as I was thinking through some of these practical tips to share with y'all. There are ways that you can minister to your kids, and it seems really silly and simple, but this is a way of comforting them, of nurturing them, and helping them to come down off of really difficult moments that they are experiencing in their hearts and in their minds and in their bodies. You're helping them to feel safe, and you're reminding your kids, you're giving them further proof that you are, in fact, there for them when they need you, and you do know what to do and how to help them when they escalate, and you do it in ways that are comforting and that are fun. Friends, I hope you have enjoyed this series all about how to promote emotional and behavioral regulation in your family. There's so much more that we could dive into, but I got to tell you, I'm super excited to begin next episodes with our new content for the fall. I have some wonderful guests lined up who are ready to share their wisdom and encouragement with you. You don't want to miss an episode. So, as I said at the beginning, please make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast. And if you know other foster and or adoptive families in your church, in your school, in your community, tell them about the show. Welcome them into the Called to Love community, and I would be so grateful if you would do that. Remember that there is an email address in today's show notes where I would absolutely love to hear from you. Any feedback that you have from this series or any conversations that have struck a chord with you, any topic requests that you would like to know more about, please feel free to send those my way. I would love to hear from you. Friends, thanks so much for joining me today on Called to Love, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Called to Love today. I love to hear from listeners, and so I would love to connect with you to hear your stories and answer your questions right here on the show. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, send me a direct message, or send me an email at the link in today's show notes. I pray you have been encouraged by today's episode to walk in faith and continue to embrace your own call to love. Until next time, blessings, sweet friends.